The deep rumble of Keanu Reeves's motorcycle broke the silence of the empty parking lot. He turned off the engine, but before even stepping off, something made him pause. An elderly man, moving slowly with a tired expression, was struggling to push a row of shopping carts that seemed bigger than him. Keanu watched for a moment and then made a decision. What happened next will not only transform that man's life, but deeply touch yours as well. The soft morning light filtered through the worn curtains of Arthur's small home. He rose slowly, feeling the weight of yet another day pressing on his shoulders. His back protested with every movement, but he ignored the pain, as he did every morning. He needed to stay strong for his wife Eleanor, who still slept peacefully in the room next door. The kitchen, though modest, exuded a warm and comforting atmosphere. The walls were adorned with old photos, a smiling wedding portrait, a beach trip from the 70s, and a family gathering at Christmas. Arthur paused for a moment in front of the pictures. What happened to those times, he thought, tightening the wedding band on his finger. After preparing a simple cup of coffee, Arthur headed to Eleanor's room. She was sitting on the bed, staring blankly into the distance. Alzheimer's had taken so much from her, but Arthur could still see glimpses of the woman he loved in her eyes. He knelt beside her, gently holding her hand. "Good morning, my love," he said tenderly. Eleanor didn't reply, but a faint smile appeared on her face. For Arthur, that was enough. He helped her up, guiding her to the bathroom and then to the kitchen table. While she settled in, he began sorting through her medications. Each pill was a reminder of the battles they faced every day. "Today is going to be a good day, sweetheart," he whispered as if trying to convince himself. In the living room, reality awaited him. On the table, a stack of bills had piled up, most marked with overdue notices. Arthur sighed deeply, picking one up and scanning the numbers with tired eyes. "Maybe I can pick up a few more hours at the market this time," he murmured, searching for a shred of optimism. Before leaving, Arthur returned to Eleanor's room to say goodbye. She was holding their wedding photo, something she did almost every day. Arthur gently stroked her gray hair and said, "I'll be back soon." "Stay well, my love." Eleanor didn't respond, but in her eyes he saw a small spark of recognition. As he closed the door, Arthur cast one last glance at the sky, now brightening with the sunrise. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of a day that had yet to unfold. With a weary expression, he whispered softly, "Give me strength for one more day." Little did he know, this day would bring something that would change his life forever. The market's parking lot was already bustling when Arthur arrived. He stepped out of his car, an old sedan showing its age as much as he was. His knees protested as he climbed down, grabbing his faded work vest from the back seat. The worn fabric bore the marks of years of use, but Arthur put it on with the same quiet dignity he always carried. "Another day," he muttered to himself as he made his way to where the shopping carts were scattered haphazardly. The cool morning air was a blessing, but he knew it wouldn't last. Soon the summer sun would heat the asphalt, making the task even more grueling. Arthur began his work methodically, organizing the carts into long rows. He pushed carefully, his eyes sharp to ensure none of them got loose. The repetitive motion sent a throbbing ache through his knee, but he didn't stop. Every minute he lost meant more pressure, and he didn't want to give the manager any reason to complain. Taking a brief pause to wipe the sweat from his forehead, Arthur glanced around. The parking lot was packed with cars and hurried shoppers rushing in and out of the store. A young man pushed a cart past him in a hurry, almost bumping into Arthur. "Sorry, sir," the man said over his shoulder, disappearing into the aisles. "Sir?" Arthur repeated softly with a bitter smile. He knew his age was showing, but hearing it always reminded him of how quickly time was catching up to him. As Arthur aligned a new row of carts, a loud voice called out from behind him. "Arthur, what's going on here? Why are these carts still scattered all over?" It was the manager, a man in his 30s with a perpetually impatient tone. Arthur straightened up, ignoring the pain in his knee, and replied calmly, "I'm getting everything in order, sir. Just need a few more minutes." "A few more minutes? That's no excuse," the manager barked with a sarcastic edge. "If you were faster, we wouldn't need two people doing your job." Arthur pressed his lips together, holding back any response that might make things worse. He knew arguing would only escalate the situation. Instead, he returned to the carts, pushing them with more force than usual. The metallic clatter of the wheels echoed through the parking lot. Minutes later, as he aligned the final row, one of the carts slipped loose and nearly hit a parked car. Arthur, with his slower reflexes, managed to catch it just in time, but the effort sent a sharp pain shooting through his knee. He leaned against the cart for a moment, catching his breath. "Just one more day, Arthur," he murmured to himself, closing his eyes. "Just one more day." For a brief moment, he looked up at the sky and whispered a quiet prayer. He didn't ask for miracles or drastic changes, just the strength to keep going. "Help me, God. Just get me through this day," he said softly, with a tone of quiet resignation. As Arthur struggled to align the carts once more, he didn't notice that someone was watching him across the parking lot. A man on a motorcycle had parked and removed his helmet. His eyes were fixed on the scene, observing Arthur's movements and the interaction with the manager. The man adjusted his sunglasses and crossed his arms, as if deep in thought about what he had just witnessed. Arthur, unaware of the observer, returned to his work, oblivious to the fact that this stranger would soon become a pivotal figure in his story. As Arthur lined up the carts, feeling the weight of the day pressing on his back, he had no idea that someone was watching him from afar, someone who was about to change his life in ways he could never imagine. The low hum of a motorcycle echoed through the market's parking lot. It was a classic model with a robust engine, yet the sound wasn't aggressive, almost as if it announced its arrival discreetly. The man on the bike, clad in a black jacket and sunglasses, parked in a quiet corner, away from the main commotion. Keanu Reeves dismounted calmly, removing his helmet and shaking his hair loose. He scanned the parking lot, his eyes taking in every detail. He wasn't there to buy groceries. That much was clear. Something had drawn him to this scene. That's when he saw Arthur, hunched over a row of shopping carts, struggling to align them. Keanu noticed the visible strain in Arthur's movements, the way he paused every few seconds, clutching his knee as if in pain. He also noticed the manager, now casually chatting with another employee, completely oblivious to Arthur's struggle. Keanu frowned. Something inside him urged him to act. Without making a sound, Keanu walked toward Arthur. When he was close enough, he spoke in a calm but firm voice. "Need a hand with that?" Startled, Arthur looked up to see the man standing before him. He seemed familiar, but Arthur couldn't immediately place the face. No, don't worry about it, sir. I've got it under control," he said with a tired smile. Keanu took a step closer, his gaze shifting to the messy row of carts. "I insist," he replied with a small smile. Before Arthur could protest, Keanu was already helping him push the row into place. "Look, I appreciate it, but this is my job," Arthur said, trying to take back control. Keanu paused for a moment and looked at Arthur. "Sometimes even the strongest need a helping hand. Don't worry, I just want to lend mine." Arthur hesitated, but something in Keanu's tone reassured him. He sighed and said, "Well, if you really want to help, start with those over there." He pointed to another scattered row of carts. Keanu nodded as if accepting a mission and got to work. As they worked together, Keanu struck up a conversation. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked, his voice carrying genuine curiosity. "Been a few years," Arthur replied. "Ever since my wife got sick. I needed a job to keep up with the bills. It's not easy, but it's what I've got." Keanu listened intently as they worked. He didn't interrupt, but his empathetic gaze spoke volumes. Arthur, perhaps feeling comforted by Keanu's calm presence, opened up further. He spoke about his wife, Eleanor, the good times they'd shared, and how Alzheimer's had turned their lives upside down. Keanu asked questions, never intrusive, as if he wanted to truly understand the weight Arthur carried. After aligning a significant number of carts, Keanu suggested a break. "Let's grab something to drink, my treat." Arthur hesitated but gave in to his thirst and fatigue. They walked together to a small cafe inside the market, where Keanu bought 2 coffees. They sat on a bench outside, watching the bustling parking lot. "Have you ever thought about retiring?" Keanu asked casually. Arthur chuckled bitterly. "Retire? With what money? I sold almost everything I had to pay for Eleanor's treatment. What's left barely covers the bills." Keanu looked down at the coffee cup in his hands, silent for a moment. "You've done so much for her. That's admirable." Arthur shrugged. "That's what any husband would do. When you love someone, No matter what happens, you keep fighting. That sentence lingered in Keanu's mind. He knew Arthur wasn't looking for pity or recognition. It was simply the raw truth of a man living for the love of his life. Keanu finished his coffee and looked at Arthur, clearly moved. He couldn't explain it, but he felt there was something he needed to do for this man. It was as if fate had brought Arthur into his life for a reason. "You're a strong man, Arthur. Stronger than most people I know." Arthur smiled faintly. "I don't know if it's strength. Might just be stubbornness." Keanu chuckled softly, but his eyes remained serious. He had made up his mind, though he didn't reveal it yet. What Arthur shared about his life made Keanu stop and rethink everything he thought he knew about sacrifice and resilience. As he watched Arthur return to work, Keanu knew he had to do something. Something big. He just wasn't sure how Arthur would react when he found out. After finishing their coffee, Keanu suggested they head back to the parking lot to continue organizing the carts. However, there was something in his tone that made it clear he wanted to keep the conversation going. Arthur noticed this, but chose not to interrupt what seemed like genuine curiosity. As they pushed another row of carts, Keanu asked casually, "So, you mentioned your wife. How's she doing now?" Arthur took a deep breath before answering. "Eleanor, she's strong, stronger than me. But Alzheimer's doesn't give you much room to breathe. Some days are good and others, not so much. Today was neutral, I guess." Keanu paused before asking, "And the treatment? You said you sold a lot of things. How are you managing to keep up with it?" Arthur stopped for a moment, leaning on one of the carts. He gazed at the horizon as if drawing strength to answer. "I sold the house we built together. It was our home, full of memories. But I needed to pay for her initial therapy sessions and medications. Then went the furniture, the car, nearly everything. I only kept what was essential for her." Keanu remained silent, absorbing every word. Arthur continued, feeling like he finally had someone willing to listen. "The job here at the market doesn't pay much, but it's enough to get by. The problem is her medication. It's expensive, and I can't stop buying it." "And you?" Keanu asked, his voice low but filled with concern. "How are you taking care of yourself?" Arthur gave a tired smile. "There's not much time or money for that, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that she has what she needs." Keanu stayed quiet, his hands gripping the cart in front of him. He seemed to be processing everything he had just heard. Finally, he said, "Have you thought about asking for help? Friends, family?" Arthur shook his head. "Most people have their own battles to fight. I can't expect them to carry mine too. And honestly, I think pride gets in the way. I've always been the kind of man who believes in solving his own problems." Keanu smiled faintly, but there was a glimmer of sadness in his eyes. "You're not alone in thinking that. A lot of people feel the same way. But sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing we can do." After a moment, Keanu placed a hand on Arthur's shoulder. The gesture was brief but deeply meaningful. "Arthur, you're an admirable man, and even if you don't believe it now, the world needs people like you. You deserve a little relief." Arthur didn't know how to respond. There was something in Keanu's sincerity that disarmed him, yet brought a strange sense of comfort. "I've already made my choice," Arthur said, trying to close the conversation. "Eleanor is my priority. She always will be." Keanu nodded, respecting Arthur's determination, but something in his gaze suggested he was already forming a plan. As the day went on, Keanu stayed in the parking lot, helping Arthur with the carts and observing how he approached each small task. He saw how Arthur ignored his physical pain, how he endured the manager's sarcasm without losing his composure, and how, despite everything, he carried himself with quiet dignity. When Arthur's shift finally ended, Keanu shook his hand firmly. "I hope we meet again, Arthur." Arthur smiled faintly. "If you keep coming around here, I'm sure we will." Keanu chuckled. "You can count on that." As Arthur walked away, carrying the weight of the day, Keanu stayed in the parking lot for a few more minutes. He knew he couldn't change Arthur's past, but something inside him screamed that he could do something about this man's future, and his wife's. As Keanu climbed back onto his motorcycle and adjusted his helmet, he cast one last glance toward Arthur, who was disappearing into the horizon. "He deserves more than this," Keanu murmured to himself. In that moment, he decided he would do something. Something Arthur would never forget. Keanu spent the night thinking about Arthur and his story. As he sat at home reflecting on everything he had learned, he realized how small actions could create an immeasurable impact. He knew he couldn't change everything in Arthur's life, but he could at least ease part of his burden. With that decision, he started taking action. The next morning, Keanu returned to the market, this time with a concrete plan. He walked into the manager's office and requested a private conversation. "How can I help you?" the manager asked, eyeing Keanu with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. He recognized the man who spent the previous day in the parking lot. Keanu, calm and composed, replied, "Yes, you can. I'm here to talk about Arthur." The manager raised an eyebrow. "Arthur? What about him? He works hard every day, even while carrying burdens most of us can't imagine. I want to ensure he gets the support he deserves." The manager looked confused. "You want to help him? Why?" Keanu pulled out a check and placed it on the desk. "I want to pay Arthur's salary for the next few months. On top of that, I want him to have some days off to rest, and I need your cooperation to make sure this happens without making him feel uncomfortable." The manager stared at the check, stunned. "That's generous, but he probably won't accept it. Arthur is a proud man." Keanu gave a faint smile. "I know. That's why this has to be done anonymously. He can't know the money is coming from me. Just tell him it's a special bonus from the market or something. Can I count on you?" After a few moments of hesitation, the manager nodded. "I think we can make this work." While still at the market, Keanu went to the customer service desk and asked for a list of nearby pharmacies. He wanted to ensure that Eleanor's treatment costs were covered as well. A quick call to the pharmacy where Arthur picked up her medications confirmed the details, and Keanu arranged payment for the next several months. Before leaving, Keanu stopped by a nearby cafe and picked up 2 drinks. Returning to the parking lot, he found Arthur organizing the last row of carts before his break. "Coffee?" Keanu offered, handing him one of the cups. Arthur accepted it with a tired smile. "You're a good man, you know that?" Keanu laughed. "I just like coffee." Sitting again on the same bench where they had talked the day before, Keanu looked at Arthur with admiration. "You're an inspiring man, Arthur. Truly." Arthur shook his head. "I just do what needs to be done." "That's exactly what makes you special," Keanu said. "Most people would have given up. You didn't." Arthur shrugged. "Loving someone means being there, no matter what." Keanu stayed silent for a moment before asking, "I know you don't accept help easily, but if someone showed up and wanted to do something for you, what would you say?" Arthur frowned. "I'd say they should help someone who really needs it." Keanu smiled. "You are that person, Arthur. But never mind. Let's talk about something else." At the end of Arthur's shift, the manager called him into the office. Arthur entered hesitantly, surprised to be summoned. The manager handed him an envelope. "What's this?" Arthur asked suspiciously. "It's a special bonus," the manager replied, avoiding direct eye contact. "You deserve it." Arthur opened the envelope slowly. Inside was an amount large enough to cover his expenses for the next few months. His eyes filled with tears as he held the paper with trembling hands. I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Just enjoy it," the manager said, trying to hide a small smile. When Arthur returned home that night, he held the envelope like a treasure. As he entered, he saw Eleanor sitting with their wedding photo in her hands, as she often did. He knelt beside her, took her hand, and said, his voice breaking, "My love, we have a chance. Everything is going to be okay now." Eleanor looked at him, and for a brief moment, a genuine smile crossed her face. Arthur felt as though he had received the greatest gift of all. As Arthur silently gave thanks for the miracle he had received, Keanu, sitting on his motorcycle in the distance, watched the small house. He revved the engine softly, disappearing down the road. His heart felt lighter, but he knew this wasn't just a good deed. It was the start of something bigger. The next morning, Arthur woke up early, as he always did, but this time something felt different. He felt a lightness, a sense of relief he hadn't experienced in years. He walked to the living room table and opened the envelope he'd received the day before, staring at its contents as if trying to confirm it was real. Inside the envelope, alongside the money, was a simple note. The handwriting was neat and elegant. "Take care of her. You are not alone." Arthur read the message over and over. He didn't know who had sent this gift, but the words touched him deeply. For the first time in years, he felt that someone truly cared. After preparing breakfast, Arthur went to Eleanor, who was sitting in her favorite chair, holding their wedding photo. He knelt beside her and held her hands. "Eleanor," he said softly, "we have good news. Someone, an angel maybe, has helped us. At least for now, our financial troubles are over. You'll keep getting the best care." He expected the usual silence, or at best, the empty smile that had become her normal warmth. But to his surprise, Eleanor raised her eyes to meet his. There was something different about her gaze, a clarity he hadn't seen in years. "Arthur," she said, her voice soft but full of emotion. Arthur froze, his heart racing. "Eleanor? You ... She smiled, the same smile he remembered from the early years of their marriage. "I feel like I'm waking up from a long, confusing dream. You're here. It's you." "Arthur." Tears streamed down Arthur's face. Before he could respond, he cupped Eleanor's face in his hands as if trying to confirm this moment was real. "Yes, it's me. I'm here. I've always been here." Eleanor looked around the room as if rediscovering every corner of their home. "Our house, it's different. But it's still ours, isn't it?" Arthur nodded, unable to contain his emotions. "Yes, my love, it's still ours." Eleanor reached out, touching the wedding photo in her lap. "I remember this, our day. It was so beautiful." "It was the happiest day of my life," Arthur replied. She looked at him with a sparkle in her eyes. "Today can be another day like that, Arthur. Dance with me." Arthur was speechless but quickly stood and extended his hand to her. Eleanor, though moving slowly, took his hand and rose to her feet. He led her to the center of the room and began softly humming the song that had played at their wedding. Eleanor smiled as he guided her. Their steps were simple but filled with meaning. For a few minutes, the world around them disappeared, and they were back in the ballroom, dancing as if no time had passed. "I missed you," Eleanor whispered. "I never stop being here, my love," Arthur replied, holding her carefully, afraid that this moment might slip away. The day felt magical. Eleanor maintained her lucidity, talking with Arthur about old memories, laughing, and even helping in the kitchen, just like she used to. They shared stories, recalled happy moments, and Arthur felt like he'd received the greatest gift of all. By evening, as Eleanor rested in her chair, she looked at Arthur and said, "Thank you for never giving up on me. I love you." Arthur held her hand and replied, "I love you, Eleanor. Always." Meanwhile, Keanu was on his motorcycle, already heading to another destination. But his thoughts lingered on Arthur and Eleanor. He knew his actions had made a difference, but he also recognized that the true impact came from the love and resilience Arthur demonstrated every day. He stopped on a deserted road, removed his helmet, and gazed at the horizon. A slight smile appeared on his face as he thought, "Sometimes the smallest gestures have the biggest impacts." Keanu knew he didn't need Arthur's recognition. True kindness, he believed, doesn't seek anything in return. In the days that followed, Eleanor's clarity began to fade again, like a flame slowly dimming. But for Arthur, that day remained etched in his heart as a treasure, a miracle he would never forget. Whenever challenges arose, he remembered dancing with Eleanor, seeing her smile as she had in the past. Arthur continued his routine, now with renewed strength and hope. He knew that even in the darkest moments, love and kindness could overcome any hardship. As the sun set on the horizon, Arthur sat on the porch next to Eleanor, holding her hand. He looked at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, whoever you are. You saved more than our lives. You gave us hope." On the road far away, Keanu Reeves sped up his motorcycle, the wind rushing past his face. He didn't need to look back to know he'd done the right thing. Because sometimes it's in the silence that the greatest acts of kindness leave their deepest marks.